And probably
Good evening,
feel
everyone. We are
good evening.
live
Yeah.
with Paolo with his sunglasses because his regular ones broke.
I have to
That's the
I have to
short
take care of
version.
it tomorrow. Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
take care of him tomorrow.
I just have reading glasses, so I don't need them.
Hmm.
I couldn't see the screen if I had them on. Though the screen is kind of in, like I said, it's not like a computer screen on my laptop is like on my lap is kind of no man's land.
Hmm.
It's not quite where I need the reading glasses, and it's not quite where sometimes I wear them. Sometimes I pull it in a little closer and wear them. Sometimes I
Hmm.
push it out a little further and don't wear
I actually thought about using shades before, but the problem is, hey, hi Wilson.
them.
Hello.
Good evening, Wilson.
Hey,
Good evening.
the problem was that since I'm using my laptop's camera and I'm standing right in front of it,
Mm.
I have the screen is reflecting on the shades, and that's the biggest reason why I don't wear them that much.
Ah.
Otherwise, yeah, I mean, could show up and I could pretend to be Maverick from,
I just think
but
I don't own a pair of sunglasses.
mhm.
Good evening, Tit Goblin.
Hello.
Who, who is sending me Mr. X Volume 3 that he found in a dollar box?
No way. There's a volume three.
There's a Volume 3. I didn't know it existed. 4 issues, 1996 from Caliper published them.
Hmm.
I don't
Oh yeah,
even know the creative team.
is that one with the short stories?
I don't know.
Because
I just found
that
out it existed.
that may be the reason why it took me so long to pick up the book again. Because
Yeah.
this reprint edition, it has short stories interspersed between the
Ah,
regular ones, and the first one is not Mr. X number one. It's a
okay.
short story by Dave McKean,
Okay,
and I
yeah.
was reading.
I think that is in the volume one of the hardcover too. It opens with
Right.
that for some reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
and here I am trying to get into something, and I need to, and they give me Dave McKean, and Dave McKean is not something that you want to read first time out. It is. Besides, the story doesn't. It's like it's some guy falling off of a building, and we can't
Right,
tell if he's committing suicide or if he was pushed,
right.
and he's having some sort of Zen monologue.
It makes a
You know
lot
the
more sense once you've read some Mr. X stories.
Yeah, but if you go right out and you
Yeah,
don't know about Radiant City and you don't know about Walter Reichman,
it makes
and
no sense. Right.
yeah, it's just some guy falling off of a skyscraper in the Dave
What?
McKean style.
Good evening, Mind the Comics.
How's my mic? Does that sound all right
Sounds
to you
okay
guys?
so far. Talk a little.
All
Let's
right.
hear.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because last night I was online with my buddies. We played D&D and we used the Zoom chat type of thing, and they couldn't hear me well, so that's why I switched over to the earphones because the mic on the camera happens to be picking up my fans because it's
Ah,
warm, so I have the fans on. So
Hmm.
that's why I figured let me try with the mic and see how good that works.
it's sounding pretty good to me.
All right, great, great. Now I'll
My
shut up.
city is pretty good at having healthy back issue archive. Yeah, I don't know. You know what? Being that I really have never spent a lot of time. Like I've basically had a pull list since I was 10.
Hmm.
So all my money has always gone to new comic. I have bought back issues at times. Sometimes I buy back issues online. Sometimes in the 90s, I remember going through my comic shop. Whenever they'd have a sale, sometimes I'd go through their back issues and buy. But it's like I rarely go back issue shopping like in a physical place. Like I just and it's like none of the like the big New York City stores that I went to, at least Hanley's, Midtown, didn't really have a lot of back issue stuff. Well, Midtown has some, but I imagine they're not dollar boxes at Midtown Comics.
Not that I've ever seen. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, the last place that I probably saw dollar bins were at comic conventions. Those are the
Yeah.
only places really to get. When I would buy older back issues, there was a comic book shop in the village called Rogers Comics. They were on the
Mhm.
second floor. I think I want to say 14th Street, but this is memories going back to the late 80s.
Right.
And that was like the last place that I recall having back issues that were fairly inexpensive. St. Mark's Comics would have sales once in a
Mhm.
while. Um, but that's about it. I think I probably found more dollar bins back issues when I traveled
Yeah.
and went to different comic shops. Every time I go somewhere, I always make it a point to try to visit the local comic book shop, especially when I went to conventions. And
That's it
so,
too. I don't go anywhere.
right. So when I would go to the comic convention, if there was time, I would try to hit the local comic book shop, and they tend to have back issues. Now, this is going back about 15 years ago when I would regularly go to conventions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So now the closest place that, and I couldn't even call them dollar bins because I really don't know the price of it. But yeah, today I was at a Book Off in Manhattan, and it's a place where people could sell their stuff. Not only books, it started with books,
Mhm.
DVDs, CDs, toys, and what have you. So they have a large section for manga. They have a large section of action figures. So I go there for the action figures. But today I noticed that they're selling somebody's back issues. So they did have a pile of short boxes, probably about 7 short boxes. No rhyme, no reason, just there. So I have no idea prices. I didn't really get to look at prices because some are bagged. Most of them are just loose. And they had a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I saw issues of Valiant, issue of Marvel DC. I didn't really go through it. It was more like, oh, this is a novelty in the sense of, I wonder what they have, and I looked quickly, but it was like something I spotted on my way out. So I don't
Yeah.
really know how. I did not know the prices of them or how they are pricing them.
I I wouldn't even know where to go back issue shopping besides my local comic shop. Um, I don't know where there's another. I mean, there's probably some within half an hour, 45 minutes drive. I imagine there's got to be a bunch. I know there's an Ollie's up by my sister's, it's about 45 minutes away too. But it's like I just go to my local comic shop, which is about a 20-minute drive, and that's it. Because that's where I spend all my money.
Right.
And $44 this week. I don't, not a lot of money for back issues after that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. I This week uh I got like the last 2 weeks of books. So
Yeah,
there was only 4 books.
right,
From that was from my pull list, and then what I bought new were a couple of the facsimiles. So I
right.
picked those up today. I went to the comic book shop today, so I
I
picked
saw,
those up today.
I saw you got this one on
Yes,
TikTok.
I
Incredible
picked that
Hulk
one up,
180.
and of course I picked up the Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 122.
Yep, I got that one last week. So
So I
121 came out like a month ago.
I'm almost sure. Do I have the original? This might be one of the holes in the collections.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it's fun. I already have a 180 facsimile, but I
Mhm.
keep all my facsimiles in like one box. So I bought this one just to put in with my Hulk collection. No other reason.
I have not grabbed many or any of the DC ones yet, but I do like getting the Marvel ones.
Oh yeah, I
I'm having
actually
a lot
got
of fun,
my other
especially
my other
that they.
facsimile is
Oh,
first
okay.
first Doom Patrol, and I also note this is $4. For $6, you can get it with a foil color cover. I
That's
think I
neat.
ordered a
It's not
Hulk
what I need.
181 with a foil cover. I'm not sure, but I think that was only $5. Memory serves, but I
That
might be
is
getting a
just
Hulk 181 facsimile with a foil color. Sometimes I order things and forget.
you know yeah, that is just not needed.
No.
These facsimiles are exactly the thing that Marvel and DC should have started doing in 1981
Yeah.
when they understood that there was a direct market. There was a
Yeah.
that that there were people who wanted the old comics, and they some of them were harder to get. They should have understood that. And sometimes they had those what do they call them, those that came out in the 80s on better paper.
Oh, yeah, they came out with those like the Adam Warlock
Yeah,
and
and the Captain Marvel and the Doctor
Captain Marvel,
Strange.
Green Lantern, Green Arrow, DC put
Yeah,
out.
yeah, and the
Captain
Neil Adams X-Men.
America,
Yes, Duranko's
the
Captain
Steranko's
America.
Captain America.
Yeah, and Neil
I
Adams
think those
X-Men.
were an experiment that didn't go anywhere.
I don't know. Who knows?
I
You
don't know,
know,
but I don't see that. I don't understand why but the thing is, those weren't versions of the old comics because they broke them up into pieces and they didn't exactly fit
Yeah.
in there. If they had done regular reprints of their old comics, new prints essentially, they would have taken care of the biggest problem that some people had, which is holes in their runs,
Hmm.
or just
Yeah.
or just new readers hearing
Right.
about oh, this is the run that everyone must read. This is historically important. These are the greatest stories that
You'll
shape
never
the
read
story.
it because it's too
Yeah,
much
but
money.
if they had done that in the 80s, probably there would be more people getting into back issues to read them now,
Yeah.
instead of thinking about keys and 9.8s
Right.
and sending
Hey,
them to CGC.
better late than never, though.
yeah, I'm really happy with them. I realized as I was looking at the cover, I thought about it. Was this the original cover? I don't have this book. I don't have the original. I have it reprinted, but I don't recall ever actually looking at
Oh yeah,
this
this is the
cover.
original cover.
So at first I thought, oh,
I used to have it.
did they give us a new cover?
No.
And then realizing, no, I never owned the actual issue. And when it was reprinted, I had gotten the 180 and 181 in a like a little trade paperback,
Right.
and that's how I read the first appearance of Wolverine. And so looking at this now, I think what impresses me about the facsimiles of now than before is that from cover to cover, they are they are made to look like how they would have printed. Many times from the past, facsimiles, anything that was like an ad, they would usually gray tone it out to
Mhm.
kind of remind you that, oh, this is not a current ad. Here, to me, this is what it would have looked
Right.
like way back when. So
This,
I
this.
do like that they are actually publishing the ads the way they should be,
Oh yeah,
instead of making it like I
some
mentioned, they
new
would
ad or
almost
something.
color hold it. Right.
Th-
So I
th-
like that
This one
about
is
this.
weird, and that, like I said, that one is nicely printed. This is another one, like the Wonder Woman one I got recently, that isn't printed from stats or film or anything. It looks like they scanned in the comic and printed it from. It's not as bad as the Wonder Woman one. They did some good cleanup on it, but still, it's not. I don't know. Like DC always did a good job of archiving their stats and things. They always had a historian too. So it makes
Right.
me wonder how this issue fell through the cracks. That it has to be printed with scans from the original comic rather than
I'm
from the
sure
black plate.
I would guess it is as simple as they had how many moves, did
Yeah,
everything go with them? Is that kind of a thing because
but it was Marvel who didn't have everything. DC had everything going back to the golden age.
mm,
They missed out on this.
yep.
And the warehouse in Brooklyn, I think the Koch warehouse, I think that's called.
I've been to the Joe Koch's warehouse a couple of times. That's to me, it's been 10 years or so. It was a lot of fun because it is it's just a big warehouse like it's called, where there are just boxes everywhere. So if you like treasure hunting, going through that could be you could. I've spent hours there and maybe picked up like 3 books, just because one I had most of them. What I end up picking up were things that were just kind of special to me. So there were like a couple of issues of the Smurfs the Marvel edition, and one or two French ones. Maybe paid $1 or $2 for each of them, and they would have sections like the trade paperback section. You could get like whatever trades you wanted for like $5 a piece, if not lower. They would have again, it was one of those things where it was nothing truly organized, if I remember correctly. So it was fun if you're into that type of thing where you're just going through. There would be some sections that would kind of be in alphabetical order. And they also had sections where it would be like, they just bought someone's collection. So here it is. They haven't even gone through it themselves yet. So that was kind of fun to be able to go through that and be able to take a look at the books that were in there. Posters, occasional toys, things like that. And they used to give out free lemonade, so I don't know if they still do that. But it was kind of like you could spend a full day there just rummaging through their stuff. And that's only a section that you're allowed in. So I don't know how big the place is or how much more that they have. Midtown has that as well. They have what they call their warehouse, which is where you could get back issues.
Is that in Queens?
I believe so. I
Because
believe
I've
that is
seen, who is
because
it? Big E from the New York Warriors, I think, has gone there, or someone from the New York Warriors. And it's like sometimes they have a sale, like once or twice a year, they have a big sale up at the
yes.
Midtown Comics warehouse. The guys have made a couple videos there, I've seen.
Yeah, so I've gone to that. Like the first is the 2 floor area, a store, and you go in. The first floor is where they have mostly the toys and things like that, and the downstairs is all the back issue stuff that they have. It looks like it was like most places in Queens, a converted house
Mm-hmm.
that is now a storefront, and it's a good sized store, like small comic shop, so to speak. But I had fun there. I got back issues there. I think I got some back issues of Godzilla at a fairly good price. And when they have their sale, the sale can be up to a half off or whatever the price tag is on there. So I bought toys at that store as well.
I got another. Since I made my Mr. X video, I know Paulo has seen it. I don't know if Wilson did. I got volume 3 of these are the Dean Motter collections of the 21st century Mr. X stuff that Dark Horse published. And I have all the individual issues. Well, some of them were miniseries, some of them were in Dark Horse Presents. Some of them appeared a couple other places too. So these were shipped, were $8 a piece on eBay. I got them. And of course, since I was like, oh, this is 1 and 3, I have to find 2. So then I found 2, once again, $8. And then I found, and I was never a huge fan of this small size. Here's a regular comic for ski. It's the manga size. So I found out there was also a version which I think is full-sized that collects all 3 of these. And I was like, oh, wonder if I can find one of those on eBay. So I ended up, and this is how I always do things now for stuff, is like if you're shopping on eBay and they have something with a buy it now on it, put it on your wish list and wait a day. The person will probably send you an offer. I don't know if they send it, eBay sends it, but who sends it?
So what happens is when because I have a eBay page,
Right.
Ramos Comics, if people would like to visit it, and on there it'll let you know if somebody looked at the item, and
Right.
then what you can do as a seller, I could go in and go, oh, this person would like it. It won't tell me exactly who. It may say
Right.
3 people like this item. So you could
Yeah.
go in and go make an offer to the person, and I could go, oh, 10% off or 20%
Right.
off or whatever you feel like it, you get an offer. You can get this item now for 10% off. That's one of the things that I do when I'm shopping. I'll put it on watch. So I'll watch
Right.
it or add to favorites. So on eBay is add to favorites. On Macari is a watch item. Even if you like the item,
Right.
the seller will kind of know about it.
Right.
Poshmark does it as well.
That's
So
right.
all
Put it
those,
on. Put it on your watch.
so if you put it
Just
on
and
the
the person will
watch,
send you a.
yeah, and you will get a offer. You will get discount 10% or more. It really
Yeah.
depends on how long that's been sitting there.
I could tell. I was
Yeah.
the one I got. Most of the Mr. X, the 3-volume set. I don't think it's a library edition from Dark Horse because it's not hardcover, but it collects all 3 volumes plus extras. Usually it goes for $30, used 25. This guy had his up. It looked a little damaged on the cover for about, I think it might have been $16.99 or 50. I forget which one, but he sent me an offer of 25% off, which was like $12. I'm like, you know what? For $12, I'm getting it. So I got that one. So now I'll have Mr. X, the Dean Motter stuff, in this form and the slightly larger form. So
Yep,
I can read.
exactly. So
I've actually gotten into reading some of my favorite comics now. Like a good example is "It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken," which is one of my favorite. It's a graphic novel now. It was in Palookaville, Seth's Palookaville. He also does Clyde fans, but I have I got the individual issues originally of "It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken." I have a hardcover, which is actually smaller, but a few years ago, I decided to buy it digitally too, just because I wanted to read it on guided view. Not that I particularly like guided. It's like I usually don't read comics on guided view. I much prefer them as a page, a physical page, even. But I was like, you know what? This is a new way to read one of my favorite comics. I wonder what it'll be like. And I actually enjoyed it. It was a different experience reading "It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken" on guided view digitally. So I was like, that's kind of cool. You can read some of your old favorites in a different way, maybe give you a different perspective on it. So I found that interesting.
what's neat about that is because I had done the for a short time when I was working at Marvel, I got to pick what the guided view images were
Mm-hmm.
because in order for guided view to work, someone has to physically sit there and
Right.
box the boxes. And it was a point where Marvel was doing it for themselves, and I think those files would eventually go to Comixology and then do it on Comixology. As a person who had submitted books to Comixology, they did change it where we, as the publisher, would do the guided views for them. They
Mm-hmm.
used to do it themselves. They had an automatic system, I believe, or they physically had a person there doing it because the filter that they use, if it was a box, it could recognize the box. If it
Right.
wasn't, and a lot of comics aren't, you had to physically put it in there. So there are some cases where the person who's making the decision for the guided view is the publisher. So they may actually put it there so you would read the way they intended. So
Yeah.
as a small press publisher myself, I was able to choose how you should read my comic with the guided view.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes an interesting thing in itself because sometimes you can press a button and it does it automatically, but 9 times out of 10 you had to go in there and really choose how the guided view work.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Chris.
What's up?
Good evening,
Hey
Chris.
guys, how's it
How's it
going?
going? Good, good.
All right.
Doing what are you? I can't remember if you're at the inking or coloring stage of Officer Clawsome.
Still inking.
Still inking.
Still inking.
Okay. Oh, by the way, about the only thing I read of these collected editions so far was the Howard Chaykin intro, only about a page, but I really gave me a little insight into Howard Chaykin and Dean Motter because he was talking about how he and Dean Motter were both into call it retro future, heightened reality, future or past or whatever. This chiaroscuro, high light and deep shadows urban landscape holds an enormous fascination for those of us who remain disappointed at the lack of personal jetpacks, flying cars, and atomic-powered zeppelins in our lives. First, from the first time I saw Metropolis, Things to Come, and Just Imagine, I wanted to live in a world that combined John Alton's cinematography and Anthony Mann's noir universe with a future visualized by Frank R. Paul on these fantastic covers for amazing stories. It's like I never really thought about it that, guys Dean Motter and Howard Chaykin's age. They were really into this retro futurist stuff. And he mentions and then along came Blade Runner. And he's talking about a critic whose name unfortunately escapes me once said that Blade Runner, although far from a critical or commercial success when it arrived, remains a vastly more important film than the big blockbusters of its time, and that it completely changed the way we visualize the future. Sorry, pal, but Dean and I were already there, waiting for the atomic-powered dirigible, he in Radiant City. So I found that a really interesting point of view from Chaykin, how... And being a Blade Runner fan too, how Chaykin, he mentioned the same. He was doing Times Squared, I think it was, which I don't think I've ever read now, because he compares he and Dean Motter and Mr. X were doing similar things. Him with Times Squared and Dean Motter with Mr. X. Now, that made me realize I don't think I've read Times Squared. I'm gonna have to track that down now.
I don't think I have either.
I know I want to.
There's supposed to be a new version of it. Didn't we talk about that a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah. I wish I could have found the Brazilian editions. The Brazilian editions were published by the non-regular superhero publisher. So they were harder to find in Portugal. And then there was that time when they just weren't reprinted.
But some nice covers on these Mr. X's. Like those. And I love it when I find something on my shelf that I forgot existed. Some more Dean Motter, Electropolis. When did this come out? Let me see. Came out in 2009. Copyright 2001, 2003, 2009. Let's see. Collection 1 through 4. Published by Image. So I guess it was originally published by Image as comics. But I forgot this one even existed. I don't think I ever bought the comics back in 2001 and 2004, and I completely forgot that. Not quite as stylish as Mr. X, I don't think, but along that same vein. As a matter of fact, there's Mr. X making an appearance. You can tell by his needle.
Yeah, I don't remember Electropolis. I remember Terminal City, which came out through Vertigo.
Yeah, I never got Terminal City because I mostly ignored Vertigo. So I didn't know it came out for years. And then I've been meaning to get it for 20 years, but haven't. It's one of those things. Oh, yeah, I should buy that.
Yeah, the thing about Vertigo is that you can't think of Vertigo as a publisher that you want to own everything, because it doesn't make sense. Vertigo, as genre-wise, it goes all over the place.
Yeah,
so you're not...
I was not a Sandman fan.
Yeah, but you didn't have to be.
No.
Vertigo starts... The main point of Vertigo was not to publish Sandman, because Sandman, Animal Man, Doom Patrol, they already existed. They were going to do that Touchmark line and stuff like Sebastian O and Enigma. They were part of the Touchmark line. But when that didn't come out, I think it was Disney that was going to publish it. And it didn't come out. And what was the editor? It was one of the guys that worked at DC doing weird stuff. Not Mike Gold. Not Mike Gold.
Throw that ringing phone in another room.
Yeah. What was who was the DC editor that did weird stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
Because he was the one that was going to do Touchmark, and he brought it to to DC, and that's how they ended up doing Vertigo.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did. It was Enigma. It was Sebastiano, but then they needed things. It was just they just had a couple of mini series that penned in. So they did what made the most sense: change the offbeat DC titles into the new line. So that's how they got Sandman and Swamp Thing, because they were all pretty advanced in numbering wise. People, when people say, "Oh, Vertigo titles like Grant Morrison's Animal Man and Doom Patrol," and Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Alan Moore was long gone by the time Vertigo came out. And well, interestingly, the first Doom, the last non-Vertigo Doom Patrol is the last Grant Morrison.
Huh. Saul says Terminal City was not as good as Mr. X. Yeah, I imagine it. Terminal City story was not as strong. Art was okay though. The story in Mr. X Volume 2 was a lot stronger than I thought it was, never having read it. Got Sebastian O a while ago. Not very good. I don't know that one.
Yeah, not everything Grant Morrison created is good. I know a couple of guys who think that Grant Morrison is the god of comics, and they all. But he had hits and misses, of course.
Yeah, a lot of these guys. I can at least understand why people like Grant Morrison. Mm-hmm. I would say he's the master of the first issue. He's really good. I don't know that I'm not a big Morrison fan. I don't know that his stories pay off for me. And having known people who've worked with him, he doesn't always have a clear plan that he can articulate.
Right. Yeah, you can tell that the filth was just a bunch of crazy ideas that he had. Maybe some things some leftovers that he couldn't use in the Invisibles. So it doesn't really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I think he refined some of those ideas in Seven Soldiers of Victory by merging them with Kirby concepts, and that was much better.
Huh. Yeah, I just bought Mr. X Volume 2, the hardcover, and read it for the first time. Like, turns out I only ever read one issue of Mr. X Volume 2 and didn't like it back in 1989. But I really like it now. The artwork really blew me away. There's a lot of inventiveness in the artwork. As a matter of fact, let me show you. I also just got this week, which I showed in my video, all 14, is it, or 13? Volume 2, number 13, issues of Mr. X. And I even put them in Mylar with backing boards, which I don't do, but I knew I wanted to look at them a bit. So if I'm going to handle it that much. But what I didn't realize was...
You got to get them graded.
Mr. X number 1 had multiple covers. I wonder if it was among the first to have multiple covers. This is 1989, so it was before 89. The age of a lot of multiple covers. Mm-hmm. I think like an indie book had multiple covers in like 87. I don't know which one. And like DC's like Legends of the Dark Knight or something. I think that was 89 also had multiple covers.
I believe so.
And this is how you did it at first. You didn't get new illustrations. You just changed the color. So it's like, we can't spend too much time and effort on multiple covers. We don't know if they're going to work. So we're just going to change the color.
Yeah, but now you have a comic that you can have a reading copy and a collection copy and a graded copy. You pick the cover that you like best, and you send it to get graded.
I'll have to show you.
But I think the DC ones, when they did it for Dark Knight, I think they also were reprints. First printing, second printing.
No. They all came out at the same time. Yeah.
Did they? Okay. I for some reason I thought that one was to indicate
like
what
4 different colors you can get. I remember that. But it's like some of the issues where it's like issues 3, 4, 5, and 6 have no numbers on the covers. Or I wrote it on the back on the like. There's number 4. It's like I couldn't find a 4, and I'm like trying to figure out what issue it is. I had to look at the indicia, and the indicia is like an op art indicia. On one of them, I had to use the magnifier on my iPad to see what number it was. It was kind of crazy. But I also got, speaking of CGC, dun dun dun, a CGC Mr. X Volume 1, Number 1.
Ooh.
Just to have one as an object. It is no longer a comic. It is now an object. And here's the strange thing. It was only $35 shipped, which, as I said before, is the cheapest you can get. The person's not making any money.
Yeah, someone's losing money on that one.
Yeah. 9.2. The auction was for an auction. The buy it now was for a 9.4.
Huh.
I'm like, huh. Now, I really don't care because it's not going to be worth $1 million. You know, the 9.2 isn't going to be worth $1,000. $35, and the 9.4 worth $100,000. It's not. It's Mr. X number. If it's not worth a lot of money now, it never is going to be. But I was just. What was that?
I know how you can become a spec channel. You have a rare non-9.8 CGC graded modern book.
So there's only 19 of these only were graded. Rare. But I was like,
once they announce the movie they're never going to make, that's when it's going to shoot up in value.
But if it was like a $100 book, I'd of course contact the guy and go, hey, you send me a. But it's like the lowest price. And I'm like, am I just opening Pandora's box if I contact the seller and go, you sent me a 9.2? It's going to be more trouble than it's worth for him, for me to send this back and he to send, and most of them going to get like $5 off. And I'm like, that's not even worth it. I'm like, I'll just stick with the 9.2.
I'm serious. When I want the modern books, they're all 9.8.
Yeah.
So you can make it a modern non-9.8 rare just for the. Doesn't matter which comic it is.
1984 is modern anymore, but it looks modern.
Well, you know what it is. Everything after 1982 is modern. but I'm serious. Since everything is 9.8 now. Doesn't matter what comic it is. Just the fact that it isn't 9.8 makes it rare.
But that also
so you should sell it on that basis.
That this seller, unless he's running some sort of scam, which I can't imagine what kind of scam you'd be running, sending someone a 9.2 Mr. X instead of your valued treasured 9.4. But that means he's got at least 2 Mr. X's that he confused. So out of the 19 Mr. X's, this guy slabbed at least 2 of them. Is that what happened? I don't know.
That's definitely a possibility. Because you did receive an item that you did not order, you could technically have eBay.
Oh yeah, I could. I know
you
that I could
definitely do that if you wanted to. But I could see how easily someone can mix up the two. Because if you go back to that seller, they may have the other one up.
But it's just like I don't. If I don't even. To me, it's like contacting him. Just might be opening Pandora's box. It's like, is it worth it in any way, shape, or form for me to have? The only reason, it annoys me, of course.
Right.
But being that I only bought it as a conversation piece, and as we said, the guy's losing money on it already.
Right.
So I'm just kind of like, you know what? Maybe I'll just. I don't want to contact.
Mm-hmm.
It might be more trouble than it's worth. But it is strange.
Man, it sounds like you got ripped off totally.
I did get ripped off, but I don't think it was on purpose. And Is it more annoying to be ripped off, not on purpose, by a small amount, or to go through all the trouble of getting the 9.4 from the guy?
This guy played you like a fiddle.
He did. He saw me
whole
coming. I'm
2
an
points.
all-day sucker. Get a Sharpie and make it a 9.8. Solid idea. Hey, he's Jared from a parallel universe with my CGCs. Or time traveler Jared, man with multiple Mr. X issues. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, we can hardly wait for Jared Collects to be launched with your tips from future you about the upcoming Mr. X movie.
I am
Because
Mr.
it's
X.
going to be on Netflix, and that's where it's going to come out. The same logo, instead of the N, is going to be the X.
A comic that disappointed me this week was Tululute and Scott Snyder's Barnstormers. This was number 1 from Dark Horse. This was one when it came on my final order cutoff email. I'm always wary of Dark Horse comics because their physical comics aren't very good. They've always got paper thin covers, and I'm not a fan of that. This one's actually got a cover stock cover, not the thickest, but a little cover stock.
The paper they use on their covers are paper thin.
They are. Can you believe it? Thin paper. It's about 40, maybe even 48 pages. And I think I read today that it was digital first. So it was like winning some award for best digital comic. And I generally like Tululute's artwork. But in this one, it was a little too illustrative for me at times, and a little not good enough storytelling in terms of, a lot of times it looked like people were posing for photos. I mean, wonderful illustration. Here's something. Let me show you a couple of pages, a couple of posing for photos pages. Where is it with that one? Okay, here it is. Let me see. And most of the book was like this. A whole book full of conversation, and no one ever opens their mouth. So there's a lack of expressiveness to the artwork that I just kind of find off-putting sometimes.
That's how you know they're using models.
Yes. Nice illustrations, but didn't really hold together the artwork as a comic for me as much as I'd like it. Definitely looks like she's using models. But you can use models and cartoon. I mean, it's more illustrative than it is cartooning in that everybody, throughout the entire book, everybody's speaking with closed mouth. Oh, look, there's one open mouth. Nice illustration. But throughout like the whole book, everyone's talking with their mouths closed. And I've always find that a little off-putting. Oh, look, down there. Finally, a guy opened his mouth. In that panel. All the other ones, everyone's closed-mouthed. When your book has a lot of conversation in it, it's important to be able to draw conversation. Here's another whole page. Not an open mouth on the page, not an expression to be found. Though I like her artwork, that let me down a little bit, but with better writing, that could have... I can't tell you what this book is about. 60 pages, and I have no idea, or 48 pages, whatever it is, I have no idea what the plot is. Here it is. Takes place in 1929. There's a pilot who's a barnstormer. He's looking to pick up work. He accidentally crashes a wedding, literally and figuratively. The bride says, The next day, the rich guy whose wedding it was holds him captive in the barn because he wants to arrest him or beat him up or something. Well, he already beat him up. The bride comes out in the middle of the night, says, "Come on, we're leaving. Get that plane moving." She forces him to fly her someplace. They land someplace and they go into this big party where she says, "I want to rob this place." And then it ends. And that's 48 pages. And it was just like, I have no idea what this book is about. There was, once again, that old, I once heard, what was Hard Boiled by Jeff Darrow and Frank Miller, described as 8 pages of plot crammed into a 32-page comic or something like that. But I must say, I believed that. I'm not as into plot as I once was. I wholeheartedly agreed with that when Hard Boiled came out. Now I don't agree with it so much in that because not everything has to be about the plot. And Hard Boiled wasn't about the plot. Jeff Darrow books aren't about the plot. They're about the crazy drawing that goes on around the plot. So I don't know if this is one of those books that isn't about the plot, but nothing hooked me in. But I liked that it's going to go in my Toulouse section.
And imagine that's something about airplane flyers.
There's an airplane flyer in it.
Yeah, it should be primarily about the plot.
There's not much of a plot to speak of in this first issue, and there's a lot of pages. And I think it won an award for some best digital only publication or something. That's what I read today. But listen, the art is nice. She can illustrate the hell out of stuff. But she needs to work on her cartooning to get me involved. Mr. X Mr. X movie, really good idea, but I'd rather see American Flag. What are your picks for actors to play Reuben? I was never that interested in the casting game. I don't know why. Probably I don't think about actors that much.
Yeah, but that's easy. Go back to 1979 and bring back 1979 Howard Chaykin.
Was they all?
Because they all look like Howard Chaykin's idealized version of himself.
Yep. We used to refer to that back when we were in art school. Because when you're in art school, you're forever doing, like once a semester, you're doing a self-portrait. They're always making you self-portraits. And my friends and I always refer, and you always make yourself look heroic in your self-portrait, even just drawing your face. And we always referred to those as, oh, that's Wilson after he saved the orphans from the burning building. That was, they were the after you saved the orphans pictures. After you saved the orphans. I can't even remember what Electropolis was about, except I didn't like it as much as Mr. X.
Well, when you have Radiant City in Mr. X, and you have a comic called Electropolis, and then you have another one called Terminal City, you kind of see a pattern there.
Yeah. You do.
Yeah. Didn't Mother want to be an architect?
I think he wanted to own his own copyright, too. Wonder if this is copyright Dean Motter. Let's see. Yup. So he gets to own the copyright on this one, not on Mr. X. So what did you read of Mr. X, Paolo?
So I'm halfway through issue number 3.
Okay. Now here's something I want you, once you get to issue 4, because I just read like the first 6, reread just like the first 6 issues. And the first issue I was able to read of Mr. X back in 85, I think it was issue 4. So I read issue 4 and eventually went back and got 1, 2, 3. And in rereading them again now, I'm like, you know what? If they made issue 4 issue number 1, it might make a lot more sense. Like issue 4, all of a sudden you get a lot of like the setup. So it's like, I had all this setup at the beginning. But well, you'll see once you get to issue 4.
Yeah, but the
That's not
the way it's set up is not bad. I mean,
no,
here
no,
you have
no.
they introduce the guy and he's called.
Right.
The thing you were complaining about that he's called Santos and then all of a sudden it's called Walter.
Yeah. Well, like I said, what's funny about Volume 2, when I was talking about it before, as you now know, but especially, I think by like, I must be up to issue 6 or 7. And by that time, he's got at least a half a dozen names. He keeps meeting new people who know him by a different name. And then you find out he was also imitating people. So people knew him by the person he was pretending to be, even though that's a totally different person. So that's why it was funny. In Mr. X Volume 2, the first story, which lasted 4 issues or so, they firmly established that he was, I think, Walter Eichmann, the architect. They even had the villain of Volume 2, the first story, was his roommate from college. So there was like no doubt who Mr. X was at the beginning of this volume. But by the end of Volume 2, you once again don't know who Mr. X is. Once again, you're like, what? Who is he? So it's funny how they did it the opposite way of Volume 1, where he started out sort of mysterious as one guy and got more and more names and identities as he went on. Volume 2, they stripped him down to that one identity and then added them back in. So I was like, interesting.
What the best would be if we found out that Walter Eichmann never existed.
We may have found that out. I don't even know. Mickey Rourke, is that Howard Chaykin in comics? Is Radiant Comics named after Mr. X? Radiant anything? No, it was just Radiant Comics was named. I did about, I don't know, 6 to 12 fake comic book companies that I used to do prints for, and Radiant Comics ended up being the one I liked the best. I don't know if I got it from it was after I had read Mr. X, so maybe it was in my head from Radiant City, but not consciously. But that ended up being the one I liked. It's kind of like, when Marvel had Timely and Atlas and Marvel. Marvel just ended up being the one they liked best in the end. That's kind of the same with.
Goodman had attempts to make Marvel the brand even way back in 1948.
Right.
Lasted for less than a year.
By the way, I also decided I'm going to reread all of the Stan Lee introductions to the Fireside Origins books.
Ooh.
Just because I haven't read them since I was a kid. So I just read like the opening piece and Origins of Marvel Comics. And the golf story was not created yet. In Origins of Marvel Comics, he just says, Martin Goodman said that Justice League was selling. There was no story of playing golf. I don't think that was invented. Well, was invented later on.
How many are you planning on reading per day?
Oh, not that many. Paid.
There's just so much bullshit you can handle.
Yeah.
I'm already. I want to see how all the fiction stories develop, though. Like when is the first appearance of the golf story?
Yeah, no golf story.
When is the first time Martin Goodman told them people hate spiders?
I think the golf story was that because a lot of things, from what I recall, gets traced back to that one article that was done in.
I think I read the year 1973 for the golf story, but
there was some article that's this. It's almost like everything goes back to that one article that was written early. That is the article that made Jack upset. They misquoted Stan a lot in that article.
Oh, that was the
It was almost
1966 one.
was that it?
Yeah, that was that one got they made Stan Lee look like a genius, and Jack Kirby was just the plumber coming in to fix the pipes of Stan Lee's genius. That's why he got upset, from what I hear.
I'm
And also in
wondering
this
if it
origin of
started
Marvel
there or
Comics,
not.
in the intro, he makes it known that after he says he could give Jack the barest bones of a plot, and he would fill out all the rest. He's like, I went home and wrote up a detail for Fantastic Four =1. Went home and wrote up a detailed plot synopsis of Fantastic Four =1, because he was writing that bit at the time where Martin Goodman was trying to sell Marvel Comics. So that they say they were trying to establish that Stan Lee created everything. So that's why. So right, like 2 paragraphs after saying he can give Jack the barest bones and he can do everything, he says, "But I wrote up a complex synopsis." I was like, "Oh, sure you did." But also, you can see how more than one story can be true. And that, like when Stan Lee talks about him creating the Fantastic Four, first he gave us the story about his wife saying, "You should really try, hon," which that story may or may not be true, but also he could be thinking about trying because Jack Kirby came in and said, "Let's try." And that put it in his head, and then he talked to him. Like, that's the stuff that gets left out. Because he also said, "Oh, after I came up with the idea for doing more superheroes, I talked to Martin Goodman about it, and I talked to Jack Kirby about it. And then I went and created the Fantastic Four." It's like, you went and talked to Jack Kirby about doing new superheroes, and then you went and created the Fantastic Four? You probably created the Fantastic Four when you were talking to Jack Kirby about it. So there's stuff like that just makes me go, Stan's, it's not an outright lie, but he's spinning it. Because what is he talking to Jack Kirby about? Creating superheroes. Obviously, he said it. So obviously, he's creating superheroes with Jack. He didn't then go and create the superheroes. So I found that a little interesting, reading that, At a university, a German history professor said golf was a classic sport. Golf was a sport, so should stamp collecting. He offended the class. I smiled.
No, it's not comparable to stamp collecting, but it is comparable to darts. Is darts a sport? Although, have you heard of that quote that's attributed to Hemingway?
I'm going with whatever Chris says is a sport is a sport. He's got the ultimate definition of sport to me. If he says it's not a sport, then it's not a sport.
Have you heard of that quote that's usually attributed to Hemingway? That there are only 3 sports: auto racing, bullfighting, and rock climbing. Everything else is just games.
Yeah.
It's attributed to Hemingway, but it was actually written by a British sports writer from the 60s and the guy at the Death Wish.
It was written by a different guy who doesn't know what sports are.
Yeah, exactly.
One and Spider-Man are different writing styles, exactly. But yeah, it's going to be interesting going through those old Origins intros, I say. Let's see. Now let me show you number 1 that I liked this week. Weird Work, Jordan Thomas and Shaky Kane. I don't know if you guys know Shaky Kane. He's kind of he came to my notice through Comic Crack by Shaky Kane, and oh god, his name just flew out of my head. I talk to him all the time. off and on here. Well, I'll figure it out in a second. But he's got this weird sort of indie style, and this actually reminded me of Mr. X, but not quite. It's like Mr. X was a style of Sleepy Reader. That's right. I can't believe I forgot Sleepy Reader. Damien, Sleepy Reader's name. He's a big Shaky Kane guy too. So that's where I learned about Shaky Kane. And lots of weird stuff. Yeah, you know what reminded me of Mr. X and what kind of sets Mr. X apart is this has got a lot of weird stuff in it, but it's weird comic book stuff. Mr. X has weird comic book and weird graphic design stuff. The artists on Mr. X, Paul Ravoch, Dean Motter, Disraeli, who's the George, Seth, they all built graphic design into their work like other comics don't have. And this had there's a little bit of weird design in his buildings and stuff, but not quite to the Mr. X level. But nice stuff. Oh, no, who also builds Brandon Graham. He doesn't quite build, not the same type. He builds weird comic drawing into his stuff. Have you ever read his stuff, Brandon Graham?
I don't think I have.
He's got his own sort of, but it's more of like an underground. His stuff is more of an underground comics weirdness, even though it's not underground comics. You can see like the underground influence in his work, which has lots of weird illustration. But Mr. X has weird illustration and graphic design. Most comics just have weird illustration, but this one, I guess it would be a police procedural. Like nice double page spread of some weird looking gangsters. And an over the hill cop. Here, let me show you some weird pages. An over the hill cop just got a promotion because there's nobody to do the job, and he's got to go and figure out some mysteries, and he's got a crooked partner. And here's a weird thing. You don't see this in an image book very often. They must have got their page in the middle of the book. There's an ad. Now, Image puts all of their ads at the end. So that I was like, what? I think they messed up their page layout with the double page spreads. So they put an ad in the middle.
Yeah, that's usually why ads get put in many cases nowadays.
I mean, it even goes to the inside back cover of the story. So why is that ad just like stuck in the middle?
To fix that two-page spread.
I think for the 2 page they messed up the page count. But notice they didn't just do it like Starstorm and put one on this side and one on this side. But I'll pick up another issue of this and give it might even put it on my pull list. We'll have to see. But it was fun. Weird work. It looks like All Red. Yeah, it's All Red has a better sense of graphic design. I think All Red stuff is very graphic designy in nature. His drawing more so than Shaky Kane has a little bit more underground comics in him. Very basic colors. I like that. Yeah, pretty not getting too illustrative with. I like that sort of indie style with sort of a simple line and bold colors. Multiple warheads. Amazing Gran has tons of food and wordplay in his stories. Yes. Multiple warheads. I only read a little of that. I only came to Brandon Graham with his last series that now I can't remember the name of, but it was great. It was his weird sci-fi one that I think started out, it was going to be short stories, but then they all just kind of morphed together into this one big story. It was good stuff. Mm-hmm. You read anything this week, Paolo?
Oh, I read a few chapters of Mr. X.
Mr.
Still
X?
haven't gotten to the end. So he's doing the origin issue while he's under the knife.
Rain Like Hammers is the Grandin Brand one. King City, I haven't read that one. What did you think of the Hernandez brothers? And what's interesting about, I think both of them were doing it. I think it looks a little more like Jaime's work.
It does. It does. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's any Beto in there.
Yeah, I don't really see a lot, and I think that even the third brother was working on it too.
Mm-hmm. But man, it's something that this convinced me that I really, really need to get into Love and Rockets now. Because there's the storytelling is just great, even without the text.
It is and the color. You don't get to see them in color that often, and the color in it is just so beautiful. And that was even early on in their careers; they were that good. It's kind of nuts. Oh, but yeah, really check out anything by them. And I always say my favorite Hernandez brother is kind of whichever one I'm reading at the moment. Because they're both so... I think Jaime's work is a little prettier. But Beto's work is so good, too. Is Love and Rockets available in Portugal?
No.
No.
And I doubt that many people know it. The guys who are into independent US comics do know it. The guys who are into superheroes have probably never heard of it. They would have no idea what the Hernandez brothers were. And then the guys who are into French comics, they won't like it because it's American. You know it is, yeah. There's this generation that was just a little bit before me. They only liked French comics, and anything American is superheroes, even if it isn't. Therefore, bad.
Yep, I can understand that. You read any comics lately, Chris?
No.
No. You got to get out there and get some comics.
I can't.
Too busy. We don't want to see you on that comics broke me thread. So, we forgot you were broken already.
I mean, I definitely belong there, but I'm not going to go out and start crying. Unless you say that. Unless, aren't you doing that right now? Aren't you doing that right now?
No, people were crying because their friend died. That's what started this whole thing. Some comic guy died young. Who everybody said was overworked and underpaid, as you might imagine.
Yeah, that's what the business is.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like it, then just
die.
Yeah, be the best there is out there.
Or become.
If you don't like it, just be the best.
Speaking of comics broke me, we also have the latest issue of Howard Chaykin's. Where is it? Hey Kids Comics. And this one takes place mostly in the 70s. When new people were coming into comics, the old people were leaving. Let's say, what is it? Come on, they gave me a year in here sometime. 1973? 1972 on the first page. But there's a thinly veiled version of Howard Chaykin in this one. Who I think Noah Gitlin is Howard Chaykin. And the way he describes himself is poster boy for the truth that passion creates a foot in the door, and it still won't make you any good. But this issue, we also see now, besides Verve, which is Marvel, and Yankee Comics, which is DC, we see in the 70s, who is this? Arista, Morris Adelstein, Now Heroes Comics Group, I think that's Archie, Red Circle, and Turret Comics, which I think is Tower Comics. But more stuff about, Arista is Atlas Comics.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, that is definitely Atlas.
And there is the Archie one.
I think Howard is letting go of the thinly veiled concept.
He's changing it just enough not to get a copyright notice.
Yet, Titan, Turret Comics, Storm Squad as our Thunder agents. And of course, the Now Heroes in the Red Circle is Archie's Red Circle Comics. So we go into a bit of that. Oh, there's people arguing back and forth. The artists want their art back, and the publishers are saying "F you." Until I think it's I don't know who this is. Jim Shooter's on the scene, the tall guy, and somebody.
No, it's everything. It's the bowler cut, the bowl cut hair, and the suit was in the middle of standing next to the hippies.
Yeah. And somebody put "Shooter sucks" in one of the sound effects, I guess. Oops, where is it? It's over here. But in this, it was his name in this, and he found it and fired the guy. Yeah, it was just a joke. Keep laughing. You're both fired. I had nothing to do with it. You two are a match set. Come on, Chuck, lighten up. Fuck you, lighten up. You're done at Verve. Bullshit. I'm irreplaceable. And I think he got fired. I don't know who he fired for putting "Shooter sucks" in a book, but there's the story of it. But I don't know how anybody who isn't familiar with the history of comics would feel about this if they were to read it. I mean, if you were to give "Hey Kids" comics to somebody who knew nothing about comics, I don't know how it would hit them.
Well, there are people who don't care about the history of comics in order to enjoy them, but I'm not sure those are the audience for this.
Yeah, that's just I don't know. You would just hand it to a comics fan, even. Mm-hmm. Would they enjoy it? Would they not enjoy it? I don't know.
There may be a sort of a perverse pleasure in reading this.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's true. And sort of feeling yourself vindicated for somebody finally saying it. Even if they're protecting the guilty parties.
Right. Good evening, SBPT.
What's up, D?
Yeah, but here's Powerhouse, number 1, which of course Superman. And was this an actual ad for the Arista Fantasy Group? I don't remember anything like this for Atlas Comics.
I've never seen any Atlas ads.
No. Wonder if that was real or not. On back, we get a 1-pager about the Stan Lee character inventing the Mighty Marvel Marching Society or whatever. There's the ad for it. The Vivacious Verve Veneration Society.
Yeah, I think the thinly veiled went out the window.
Speaking about the secret societies in comics, I have my Wham button,
Ooh.
Ooh.
and that's about how far they went.
Oh no, what is WAM? I'm confusing it with WAP.
Wham is the wild something of Marvel.
Wild
So
Agents of Marvel.
Wild Agents of Marvel. So I remember sending away for it for the kit. All I ever got was the button and a couple of comp covers. And I don't think Wham went any further than that.
Hmm.
So Wham was supposed to be basically the replacement of Foom,
What
or
year?
the Wham came out I think 89.
Okay.
Hold on. Actually 91.
Oh, okay.
So it was 91. And that's when it came out, and then it just didn't go anywhere. And then I was on one of the Marvel committees, which always happens that there's a committee, and we were trying to get ideas to make another to make another club, Marvel club. So it was myself, two other people. Flo was invited because Flo was there for some of the original
The
ones.
Mighty Marvel Marching Society.
Mighty Marvel March Society. So we talked to her about it, and we're trying to get ideas on how to make a new one. And this was about 96, 94, 96. So I came in with ideas where it's like, okay, we do what we've done before, the buttons, the giveaways, and stuff like that. But Marvel was doing things like, Toy Biz was doing the action figures, and Marvel was just at that point of buying other companies. And my idea was, okay, we have all these companies. Let's get something made from each of these companies to put together this press kit, to put together this new club. You get an action figure that you can't get anywhere but through this club. And they're like, they'll never do that. They'll never go for that. It won't happen. And then, years later, I'm online, and if I wanted to, I could join Marvel subscription at Marvel Unlimited.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, there's an action figure there you can get only if you join. I think it's a Daredevil in his yellow and red costume. And it's like, I had these ideas in the 90s, and they said they'll never do that.
Had to wait
But
a
at least,
generation.
at least with Wham, some stuff was made. That other project, that other committee I was on, it was dead about a month into it.
I was confusing it with WAP, Words and Pictures, which I think was in the mid 80s, early to mid 80s. I don't remember what year. Was I think Frank Miller was one of the organizers. There were other people that they were making like an industry newsletter for like comic book artists and writers and things. Sort of a solidarity thing. But I don't think it lasted very long, of course, because you don't want your editors to necessarily read it, and of course someone will give them a copy of it. And they had a public one and a private one, and it caused controversy. But I really don't remember the story. It was so long ago. WAP. Tonight we have Mr. Osborne, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Jerusalem. Oh, Mr. Cobra, the strong arm of the law.
I am the law.
Is he going for a Madman TV show? I don't know if I can. It changes. Like one of the things that's different about this than even your normal. Like I just read that Shaken Comics Southern Brother, whatever it was, that came out last week. And it read so much more smoothly than Hey Kids Comics. Because Hey Kids Comics jumps around. So it's like watching an MTV music video in the early 80s where a lot of quick cuts. This book is made up of a lot of there's a scene, then it switches to another scene, and there's no explanations for the scenes. You have to kind of be paying attention all along and go, oh, now we're back to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Oh, now we're back to Gil Kane and Howard Chaykin. Oh, now we're back to there's not a lot of clues that go with the edits. So I don't think it's nearly as smooth as Madman. So I don't think that's what he's going for. Hola. Mind the comics. Good evening, Mr. Herald of Comics.
If you try to do an actual TV series, I'm not sure that it could follow the structure of the comic series.
No, you couldn't. I don't think you could. There's too much
jumping around, too much not following the characters directly.
Right.
And I can imagine the nightmare it would have to be to have actors who can play somebody who's 20, 40, and 60.
Yeah. A tough thing to do.
Yeah, then you have the problem of like who's distributing it, who's showing it. I mean, the recent Stan Lee show has a lot of people up in arms. It was an interesting thing to watch, but it's like if you're not giving that kind of dedication to each member of the Silver Age, it's really hard to even probably put together.
Yeah, I can't imagine it as a TV show.
No,
Good thing I like comics.
Yeah.
Oh, my eyes are tired tonight. Doing a lot. Want to see a new mechanical pencil set I got for no reason?
Sure.
Let's do it.
I got this. Whoa. I got this off of Amazon for $12. There were people in the review section going, "No way, this is worth $60." Blah blah blah. I bought it maybe $25. I was like, "Well, it's on sale for $12, so I may as well get one just for the heck of it." And they're pencils I haven't used before. They're sort of like lead holders, in that it's a 2.0 pencil lead. So it's big. It's not a little pointy lead. And I've had these all my life, but I've never really used them. Where is it? These type of pencil sharpeners.
I've had them before.
Yeah, I guess they're actually made for these type of pencils. You put it in there, and you twist, and that sharpens the pencil. And it comes with a ton of lead, too. 3 pencils. I'm, of course, going to use all the 4B lead. 6 pieces of 4B lead, 12 pieces of 4B lead, 6 pieces of HB. But one of the reasons I want it is it came with a bunch of colored leads, which I've never used before.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 things of colored lead, blue, yellow, and I think I'll have to see what. And it comes with 3 erasers too. It comes with 3 of everything. But I was like, you know what? For being that I'm an art supply junkie, for $12, I'll buy it. And what's also weird is it comes in usually when you get a case like this, it snaps in the front. This one also has a snap on the side and a snap on that side. So they really don't want it to come open.
Uh-huh. That's actually pretty neat.
Yeah, neat, you know.
Yeah, for $12, why not?
I was like, I'll gamble $12 on that. Even if I never use it, it's cool to look at.
So as I got the new books today, Amazing Spider-Man 28, Spider-Man 10, freebies are the DC Connects Wonder Woman. It's their catalog. The Gotham one, which opens up and it reminds us that Batman Day is coming up.
Oh,
That will be in September.
Do you ever order
September
anything? Does anything ever
16th.
catch your eye in those books and you order it?
I haven't yet. Most
Yeah.
of the time, I just look at it to see what's coming up. Is there anything interesting? The only thing that caught my eye were that the facsimile editions that are coming out of Detective Comics and Flash, Wonder
Yeah.
Woman. The Wonder Woman, I laugh because I remember buying that at I bought this at Forbidden Planet the day it came out back in
Which one is that?
this is issue number 1 of Wonder Woman. This is the George Perez one.
Oh, the George Perez Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I
They're doing it.
remember buying that at Forbidden Planet on 59th Street when they had a store there. And then the other thing that caught my eye out of all things was a Nightwing cover. And I thought
Mhm.
that was interesting enough that I may want to order that. Let's see if I can find it. It might be in the. Oh, here we go. So it is Nightwing,
Hold on.
and
Let me make
it's
it
just
bigger so we can see.
it was a black and white cover.
Okay.
It has a Cthulhu-ish look to it.
Yeah, a tentacle something.
Yeah, so I just found that interesting enough to go, Nightwing. Nightwing is one of those characters that's a Batman character, but I can easily in my head think of him as just another superhero.
Right.
That he's to me he's out of the shadow of the Bat. That
Mhm.
he is kind of his own character. So it was one of those things like, that might be something I may give a try since I haven't really reached into the DC portion of getting back into comics. I got like a couple of issues of Green Arrow, but it hasn't hold me yet. And I've been buying Superman just to buy Superman. But those are the books that I happen to get. But when I got them, I started putting the digital code into the Marvel app to get the
Right.
book out. And my brother asked me, "What am I doing?" And I was letting him know, "Oh, these books are available digital," which caused a question that never even came to mind. Where it's like there are older comics that there's an Amazing Spider-Man issue of the first Hobgoblin that has a tattoo attached to it, a tattoo patch sticker.
I have asked this question on this very show before.
And it's like, okay, the issue that I originally had didn't have it. I eventually found one at a comic book shop. I eventually got it, and I have both issues. And it kind of reminds me of in the 90s, we had comic books that had the Fleer cards in it, even packages of Kool-Aid. If those are removed, are those books incomplete? Because that's something completely different than, let's say, the stamps that were physically cut out.
Right. Well, I
Out
know
of a book.
CGC doesn't grade anything in a bag. And collectors now know that younger collectors don't want them polybagged. Some of them still do, especially as older collectors do. But I remember watching the once again the New York Warriors channel a few years ago, and they were talking about it how a comic book the polybag makes the comic book deteriorate faster.
Mm-hmm.
So CGC won't grade it in a polybag. So you got to get that out of the polybag as quickly as possible if you want to high grade and send it into CGC.
And there's the thing, because there are so many different types of books that were made in the sense of, okay, polybag.
Right.
X-Force #1 was polybag, but those came with cards.
Right.
Should the cards be in with the comic book, even though you remove it from the polybag?
I think that used to be the way, but it isn't anymore because of CGC.
Okay, so then what about the Fleer cards that were stapled to the comic?
I think they
books?
have to be there, but
They have to be
CGC
there.
isn't going to stick loose cards in with your comic book.
Right. Then how about the so the comic books, the Marvel comic books that has the digital code, has a little sticker that you
Right.
peel off to read the code.
That's the question I wanted to know too. Is is it considered complete if the sticker's not there?
And because I figured
How would
because the sticker has the redemption code, this one doesn't have the code. This one we have
right,
to some of them have the code, some of them don't. Because the code does have an expiration date on it,
right.
does that mean the sticker can be removed? Because even if you bought the book years later,
No, I don't
the
think it
code.
has anything to do with the code being valid or not.
Okay.
I think it has to do with a person wants everything that came with that comic book, including the sticker. And I can tell you that my friend Rob, who I meet at the comic shop, he buys a ton of comics. And what he does every now and then is he takes the comics and he buys a bunch of much more mainstream stuff than I do. And he buys a bunch of stuff. And when he's cleaning out, he just brings it back to the comic shop. You're like, here, you can have, he redeems all the Marvel stickers, all the Marvel codes. He brings it back to he doesn't even want money for them. He's like, just sell these, do whatever you want with them. And my comic shop, they'll sell them online for, most of them aren't worth anything, $1 or $2. And he sold one, I don't know what it was, $3 comic or something. And the guy wrote him back and complained that the sticker wasn't intact. So there are some fans who now here's the question I have. You and I both know.
There are some fans who care about that, but don't think to ask that in advance.
Right. So, and the question I have, we all know the stickers aren't forever. So at some point, those stickers are just going to slide off themselves. So, does that mean you keep the sticker? The white sticker? Let's just say it's your comic collection. You've got some favorite issue you like. The sticker's still on it. Then one day the sticker, because stickers don't last forever, comes off by itself. Do you keep the sticker in the bag with the comic or do you throw it away?
Knowing me, I probably would keep the sticker with the bag.
I might too, I'm not sure.
But the funny thing is like the newer books, I do redeem them. So I do have the stickers. I try to peel off the sticker where the sticker can still stay on it. So I can read the code and put it in. Now, I had gotten I had gotten a couple of boxes of free Marvel comics. Bagged and board, stickers are still on it. I had no interest in keeping those books. I decided to put them on the eBay page. So with that, what I did is I took a picture of the cover, the back cover, and then I opened it up to that sticker page and I took a photograph of that sticker to show it never been peeled. And then I closed it up and put it away. But when I got those books were during the time where those stickers were still valid.
Right.
So I wanted to show that everything's included plus that sticker just in case.
Right.
Someone
you wanted
to
let them know that they could still get the digital issue.
Right, because at that time you can get it. Again, I think this was at a point before they even implemented the how many months you have to redeem it. I don't recall what the number is right now. I think it's 6 months. It could be less. It could be more. I am not too sure. Because there have been times where I would get a book and forget to redeem it. And according to the information, after a few months, you can't. And I've put it in there and I've been able to redeem it. So I really don't know how long it takes for it to really expire. But I did find it interesting. It's like, all right, can you resell books with it or not? And I thought that in itself is a, fascinating thought experience anyway, because eventually, as you say, these things will peel off. So there are books that are going to be CGC'd that will eventually have at the bottom of it, you'll see something popping out, and again, it's like, is it part of the comic book? Does it need to be part of it? It's one of those things in itself. Because again, there are comic books out there with Kool-Aid in it.
Mine in the comments says, I don't understand what Rob does. He buys the comics, reads them, and gives them back to the shop. Usually that's what he does. Usually they're comics that are months old that he decides he's not going to read again, and he's only got a certain amount of room. He's okay with having just the digital issue of some stuff too. So he just brings it back to the comic shop. If there's something valuable in there, the shop will give him credit for it, but there usually isn't. Most comic, this comic I just paid $4 for is worth $1 now. This dollar box being fodder. And if I wanted to sell this comic, I'd have to sell it for $1. The comic shop wouldn't even give me $1 for it. They wouldn't want it. I mean, that's just most comic books are like cars. When you drive them off the lot, they lose their value, but comic books lose their value even faster and more dramatically. It's like if you're not interested in Howard Chaykin's Hey Kids comics, maybe I can convince you to be interested in it for $1. At best. Just like, trade paperbacks that retail for $15, $20. You try to sell them used, you get $5 for them. Brand new used even. There's just not a lot of value in comics once you bring them out of the comic shop. That's Chaykin's style of writing. He did it in Flag, Black Hawk, and The Shadow. He has no sympathy for the average comic book reader. But this one in particular has even less sympathy, because I just read the other Howard Chaykin one last week, and it read so much smoother than this one. I think this one is sort of the epitome of Howard Chaykin having no sympathy for the comic book reader. So it might be even more Howard Chaykin than his normal Howard Chaykin. Every time I see Mad Men, I think it would be great if they make a spin-off for the comic book editorial business.
Yeah. But we're used to continuity implants, flashbacks, also having not read a part one of a two-part storyline from the 70s because we didn't have the money back then, and then we only bought so we're used to reading things out of sequence. The problem here is not whether the comic readers can follow the story. It's if you made a TV series, they definitely would not be able to follow the story, but if it jumped around like that.
Yeah, he enjoys reading paper, but is okay with collecting digital. Yeah, I'd say that he was just telling me he was just rereading American Flag, and he reread it digitally on his lunch hour. So that was easier, because he works for a school and he's the guy in charge of all the iPads. So it's easier for him to read. It's easier for him to read digitally. He's surrounded by iPads. He's got an iPad Pro 11-inch that's issued to him by the school. So that's nice to read comics on. I don't know if you ever read comics. I've got an iPad Pro 10-inch, whatever it is. And that one's pretty nice for reading comics on, but like the bigger size is wow.
I've only ever mine actually is not around here. I have an iPod, the Mac Mini ones, and Mac Mini, sorry, the iPad Mini. I can't speak. The iPad Minis, and I like that one. It's a nice small size that I can use it to read comics, and it's almost the same as like a Kindle. So it's not as big as the regular iPads, but I don't mind reading comics on that. To me, that's fine. I think that's the smallest I can go. I can't do it on a cell phone.
You know what I used to do when I read digital comics? Not that I read a ton of digital comics, but I would occasionally read some. I take my laptop. I open up a PDF of a comic. I rotate the PDF 90 degrees, and then I hold my laptop like a book. So now you get the comic page, the length of the vertical laptop, and you just hit the arrow key to go to the next page. So that's how I read Old Man Logan, I think. Because I didn't want to buy it. I wanted to check it out. Yeah, that's not a bad way to read, especially like my new laptop here, which is light as a feather. I could probably read comics easy like that, digital ones. How do you read your digital comics, Chris?
I have not done that.
Not a single one?
Oh no, I have. No, well, yeah, it's usually just on the computer, on my
Okay,
desktop.
right. What do we have here? Have you noticed the DCU Ultra now releases digital 30 days after print? Marvel will soon follow. What do you think? I think digital will soon erode paper. I think people like paper so far because digital's been around for a while.
That paper though, it's paper thin.
It is. Just don't want your covers paper thin. You want them paper thick.
Yeah.
I think back to what Stan used to say about comic books and digital comics.
I know what's coming.
He's never said this, but
I know what you're gonna say.
You know exactly what I'm going to say? They're like boobies. They look good on screen, but you rather have them in your hands.
I don't usually read digital, but when I do, Jared technique is great. Yeah, the turn in that works well. Like I said, I usually read, but it's like sometimes I can't even remember what comic it was. It was an anthology that I bought for like $3 an issue that I just happened to find through TikTok that I really liked. But it was like I think you could get physical copies of them, but it was like $20 to get the physical copies and $3 to get the digital. I'm like, you know what? I'll try this small press thing out for $3, especially since it was Apple Pay that makes it easy to pay. And I really liked those two copies. I would actually buy them physically if they were nearby, if I could get them, but I can't. So I'll buy them digitally. Matter of fact, Bad Idea just sent out an email about digital comics that I really should read. I mean, they didn't send it out to me. They sent it out to Bad Idea fans, I think, with there's something about them coming out with digital comics. Let me see if it's in my. I'm like, I really should read that. Only you can save digital comics from Amazon. Digital comics don't have to suck. Okay, there's a bunch of how digital comics sucks. Digital was meant to give us more. We have access to the artist's original page layouts, pencils and inks, the writer's original script, the editor's notes, trivia, Easter eggs, millions of new colors. So what happened? Amazon, they fucked us. They gave up on quality for convenience. Okay, good. Bad Idea has had enough. Yes, Bad Idea, the one publisher who to date has been exclusively printed on paper publisher. So we're happy to blow a whistle on what a scam digital comic books are, because it's easy to do digital right. Okay. Did you know that every publisher is already doing it? Just not for you. When we edit, approve, and send comics to the printer, we do so digitally. All those files the professionals see are magnificent, high definition, full contrast, incredibly vivid and full art that never sees the printed and bound page. It's high time we brought that level of quality to the readers. Okay. What are they actually going to do? Just this one time, we're breaking our no digital rule, pulling out all the stops to build a showcase digital comic book. So everyone can see everything that's possible. Something you can all point to and demand from Amazon and everyone else. And we're doing it with the comic book masterpiece, The Ends. Okay, I did the first 2 issues of that. I think we have more in the pipe. Comic book national treasure and living legend David Lapham, in partnership with the incredible talents of his wife, Maria Lapham, and legendary team of Scorpio Steel, Big Bill Crabtree, and Dave Sharp, have been hard at work revisiting the comic book already dubbed the comic book of the year. Now we are releasing the full extent of what we professionals see. We've also left no stone unturned in a quest to reach even greater heights with the story. Never before has a comic book of such acclaim. Everybody said, okay. The Ends Pro Edition. And you can know, I guess they're releasing, if they really want to give, readers behind the scenes, we usually how it works when he says this, it is all digital that we do. Usually how it works is I put together the actual comic book. I take the parts from the letterer. I take the parts from the colorist. I take the parts from the artist. And I'm the one who puts them all together in an InDesign document. And then with that InDesign document, I make a PDF. That PDF gets sent out to everybody. Changes are made, given back to me. I sent out another PDF. Changes are made, comes back to me. I send out another PDF. Changes are made, comes back to me. I still have all those PDFs. I don't delete anything. So it's like, we can show them every single change in 12 versions. Really, that'd be boring as hell to them, because it'd be like, fix that period, move, change that and is to and of.
Yeah, because it's like you send it in, it's like final version 2, final version 3. Yep. This is the damn final. Stop asking for any more revisions.
And 20 years from now, 4 publishers later, somebody will want to reprint that, and you still have the files. You just won't have the program that will be able to open it.
Yeah.
I got files going back onto. They're probably not even files that can be used. Going back to CD-ROMs. I probably still have a SideQuest disc around.
I know I have a SideQuest disc.
I know I have a couple
and a SideQuest drive. Still.
I know I got a couple of zip
I know
discs
I can tell you right where my zip discs are.
Yep.
I don't know if I can hook it up to my computer right now, but they still exist.
I know I have burnt CDs from a lot for all that manga stuff I've done over the years. That they're, because I kind of kept everything, and I have at least one hard drive that I can't access anymore that has stuff on it. So, because I tend to have kept everything mainly because, I kind of learned that at Marvel. It was
never delete anything. Just buy another hard drive.
5 copies of everything. Yep. Oh yeah. I got files from companies that don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
From so many small press companies that I could probably just print that stuff myself. And of course, I have all the files for, whatever little small press companies that didn't pay me. When you're the last guy on the on the conveyor belt, you have all the files. And if they were good books, I probably could have published them on my own, but they didn't last. They didn't last that long for a reason.
And people who like paper are getting off of space, getting out of space. Yeah, nice boobies analogy. Finally, the secret is to share the collection with different family members. Yeah, use up all their space. Did anyone hear the terms of conditions by R. Sikarak? I just bought it for $6 and looked like the History of Comics type book, drawn in quarterly. No. Oh, is that the one? There's a guy who illustrated Apple's iTunes terms and conditions. Is that the one you're talking about? I've never seen it. But there's a guy who made a comic book out of Apple's terms and conditions. That's what all the dialogue is.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what he's talking about. And it's kind of nutty. Because you go to read it and you're like, wow, I don't really want to read this. But nice pictures to look at. Let's see. What else did I get this week? I think I got 12 comics this week. That's what happens with these facsimile editions and first issues. Monstrous, issue number 45. Another good, but once again, I don't think people are going to jump on in the middle of this one. The story is just, it's an epic fantasy story that's been going on for 45 issues. It's also quite personal. fantasy story too. It's like now all the characters are caught in this sort of nightmare dream world with all the monsters they've been avoiding, and we've gone from the real world to this strange realm of the monsters, and who knows where they're going. Because it's funny, the first, I don't know, 40 books were about the real world they were in and all the build up to this big war that the humans and the Arcanics and all these people are happening. And then all of a sudden, and the monsters were sort of in the background. They've been trapped for eons, except for Monstress. This one lead character has a monster attached to her. Now they somehow got in this other world where all the monsters were banished to. Now they're trying to figure out that. So it's real. I mean, and of course, the artwork is real high fantasy artwork with lots of scribbling and detail and color right over pencils. And talking cat wizards. Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda is the artist. But you know what? I've been buying it for 45 issues, so I don't have a lot new to say about it, except it's a good book. One that, like I said, you can probably get it's an image book. You can probably get the first trade for $10 and see if you like it. You don't have to start at 45. It is that one that the guy illustrated apples, terms and yes, that's a weird one. That is a weird one. There's also, that's what what's his name? His name just flew out of my head.
I think I know exactly who you're
comics
talking
editor.
about. Sid Jacobson?
Sid Jacobson and oh man, his name just flew out of my head. Archie
Peter
Ernie Colon.
Okay, yes.
I don't know, about 15 years ago, they did a few things, maybe longer, maybe closer. Not like, I think they did the illustrated 9/11 report. They did another illustrated with Sid Jacobson writing and editing and Ernie Colon drawing. I've always wanted to check those out, but I never have. There's one other, like they did another one that was illustrated, like a government report made into a comic book.
Is it Peter Cooper? It's an illustrator. I think he might have done something similar to that.
Okay.
I think that's the name. I'm not positive, but I think he used to do artwork for stuff like the Village Voice.
Right. Peter Cooper, I think that is her name. Coop.
Or Coop, yeah. I think he did something similar to that, where he took a report and did artwork for it.
I think he had a show at the Whitney I was at years ago. The Whitney Museum in New York had a comic book show that I think had a Jewish tie-in. I can't remember. I think Eisner may have been in. I can't remember, but it was nice to see some comic book art in the Whitney. I think Coop was one of them, but I can't. Somewhere, I think I have the program for the show buried amongst all this.
Speaking of exhibits, there is the New York Public Library that's in Lincoln Center. Has the original art desk and chair to Al Herschel. I think it's Al Herschel, who used to do the characters.
Right.
And his desk and some artwork is hanging up at the at
Hirschfeld
library. I think, is it Hirschfeld?
That's Hirschfeld, right?
Hirschfeld. So there's some artwork and his original art desk and his chair. And the chair that he used is a modified barbershop chair.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading that. Huh. Have you seen? Is his inkwell on his desk?
I don't recall. I have to dig through the pictures because I did take pictures that day.
I think it's him. I remember seeing they showed on the internet ages ago a picture of his inkwell, and it's like a volcano because whatever bottle he had there had decades of. It's like as he dipped his pen and pulled it out, one drop of ink came out. and fell right next to the inkwell. Over so many decades, like it looks like a volcano had erupted, and all the solid ink is lava. And I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if I can keep an inkwell in one spot and have." No, I couldn't. I had to clean my. I keep my ink in jars that I work from off to the side, and I got to clean them every so often.
Hmm. I do too. I have, and I've gone through some art desks where it's like Kirby had the same desk he had. I've seen Kirby's desk up front.
Right.
That was an exhibit. I saw the guy who created the Adams Family, Charles Adams. I've seen his art desk,
Mm-hmm.
and it was almost like all the artists from that time had the kind of like the same drafting table.
Oh yeah.
And they used that one. But I've gone through. This is the second drafting table I have, because the one before that I had since high school, and that just eventually fell apart because it wasn't like a great drafting, a drafting table my parents were able to afford to get me.
Right.
But again, it's one of those things where it's like seeing. I remember seeing Dick Ayer's drafting table, and it's like almost like the same brand drafting table those
That
comic artists got
A-frame,
from yeah,
that everyone had.
that wooden one. Mm-hmm.
I've had the same drafting table since 1991. I keep adding things to the side of it. I just did that again this year because the tabourets we have at Marvel, the side trays we had at Marvel. I got one of those when I got this desk, but then there wasn't enough stuff in it, so I added more side table onto that side table, and then on the other side, I'm like, well, I need a side table for this side, so I just built like a shelf over there. And for years, the shelf only went 3/4 of the way up the left side of my desk for 8 inches by, the length, what is that, 38 inches, 36 inches tall. And when I got those new markers just a couple months ago, I got a new piece of 1x8 and screwed it to the side of the desk. And so now I have that whole side is filled with markers. But the actual, like I said, I was actually going to buy a fancier desk than this. I would say, it's not unfancy. I paid a couple $100 for it in 1991. But I had an even fancier desk in months, the A-frame desks, only sort of like the Cadillac model of A-frame desks. They were around $300 or $400. And I couldn't even find one. I went to Pearl Paint. They didn't even have them. They just had this one, which I didn't like as much, but I'm like, well, it's here. I'll get this, and I'll get one of those other ones I really want at another time. Well, 30 years later, I still got this one. And I put drawers underneath my desk. I keep adding stuff. So now it's like underneath my desk has 2 drawers in it that you just stick on the bottom of things, which they don't make anymore. I just went to buy some new ones off of Amazon, and you can't get them. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I've had the same desk that long. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I've had this desk since Marvel times.
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah, and I don't know if it came from Marvel or not. I think I got it from Tim Smith.
Okay, yeah, because at one time when Marvel was computerizing, they were giving away all the desks, giving away whatever they could give away, which is amazing that Ike didn't sell it. But
so I think Tim might have upgraded his table, and that's why he's getting rid of his. And I don't know if his originally came from Marvel or not. It's metal. It's like metal legs and stuff.
No,
I think he wanted
all wood.
Yeah, he wanted that wooden one. So I think I just had his from his art school.
Right. Maybe when he got the Marvel one, he gave you that one.
Yeah.
Those Marvel drawing tables were nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I was there to take one home, but I wouldn't have been able to get it home anyway. Can't take one on the bus with me.
You could try.
I would have to try late at night, not on the commuter bus. The late one of the emptier ones.
Hmm.
They may have let me take it then.
Go catch your bus.
But you had to take them in pieces.
Wave to the people honking at us.
I'm on the 5th floor, and it's like a block party.
That was you, not Wilson?
I usually get sirens, but yeah, that was like it sounded like outside your window.
I think I've explained, but the way that the buildings are set up in my street, if a car goes by, the noise ricochets off the buildings going up. So
Grifter fell down. I usually keep one toy on my desk. And Grifter is, I just bought him. At one point, when I kept one toy on my desk, I was like, you know what? I should buy one toy a year and keep it on my desk. 10 years later, I had the same toy. Because I never bothered. You know, I'm not a toy collector anymore. But this year, I was like, this was on sale on Amazon for like $10 or something. I'm like, you know what? I'll have a Grifter toy on my desk this year. I ended up getting Grifter, and what was the other one? I got one more. Oh, Despair. The Spider-Man, the villain from Marvel Team Up 68, because that was my favorite Marvel Team Up as a kid, and I still like it. I was like, a Despair figure? Once again, it was like $8 on Amazon. Obviously, no one else was buying Despair figures.
Does Despair count as a Spider-Man villain?
I don't know. He showed up in Marvel Team Up 68, I think, for the first time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Man-Thing villain,
Thing.
really.
Yeah, but
because I know it was the Man-Thing crossover, but
they used him a couple of times but they used him a couple of times in X-Men. And I remember one time in Cable. Must have been a fill-in issue. I think it was Fabian was quitting and the new guy was coming in. And there was a Doctor Strange, but that one was actually easy to take care of. I think writers like Despair, or at least like to pretend they're doing something intelligent with Despair because they're fighting a feeling, but
yeah,
it's not like people think.
But Marvel Team Up 68 was his first appearance, right?
Probably, but it is the Man-Thing first. But it is with Man-Thing, which is why he appeared again in Man-Thing.
He was a Man-Thing villain in Marvel Team Up 68. Spider-Man just happened to come along and fight him. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he appeared before. Not sure. Spine-shattering drafting tables, like my chiropractor calls them. That's why my drawing table is set up at standing height. So I stand here and work. And I also didn't cheap out on my drafting chair, which I spent I don't know $200 or $300 on to get one of the good ones like we had at Marvel. But yeah, standing I find so much more comfortable than sitting. My easel is I stand at. My computer is at standing height. That's the way I like. Up there's Wilson's link. Let's see what else.
A link to an article that has some pictures of the desk, and it's hard to see, but the inkwell is behind the desk, so it's on his table that I would assume he had on the side.
Junk Rabbit, issue number 4 of 5, I believe, and we finally got a hint this issue that Junk Rabbit might have some sort of must have some sort of supernatural power. Because we found out who the Junk Rabbit is, and the Junk Rabbit got absolutely clobbered by this giant robot. But then somehow the junk pulled the flesh back together. But then the giant robot clobbered it again. And they brought the junk rabbit back into the dome to show it to the boss. And I just got to figure the junk rabbit for the last issue, the junk rabbit's going to heal up and kick everybody's ass, or kick the boss's ass at least. So. But it's been decent. I didn't realize that Jimmy Robinson is the one who did a comic called The Bomb Queen. I don't know if you've ever seen The Bomb Queen before.
I've seen images of it.
Right. The covers are what first caught my eye, because he does these sort of cheesecake covers for The Bomb Queen. It must have been 10 years ago he did it. And he did quite a lot of issues of it. What was that?
Was it from Image?
I think it may have been from Image.
Okay.
Like, I remember what was that, Chris?
When I was in their bullpen, we were doing Bomb Queen.
Okay. What year was that? Do you remember?
2007.
Okay. Yeah, it was a while ago, but that ran for a while. Bomb. We always had nice covers. I think I digitally collected the covers at some point and even read some issues digitally. But I didn't realize that that's who Jimmy Robinson is, because this is the second Jimmy Robinson series I bought. But I didn't realize he was the Bomb Queen guy. I was like, oh, okay. Now I can put him in context.
So the Jack Rabbit character, we don't find out that he was also the internet sensation guy that gets killed, I think, in the early story.
No, the Junk Rabbit killed that guy.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to find out he made that up and he actually was the Junk Rabbit.
No.
Okay.
Junk Rabbit is definitely someone else. That guy is definitely dead. The boss of the city is that guy's father, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
What it is, and I didn't even realize that till this issue. The people who live outside the city breathe methane. The people who live inside the domes breathe O2 like normal. So the people from outside the cities can't even come into the cities, into the domed cities, without some sort of special apparatus. Or he says there's surgery that maybe can make this person come into the city if she wants to live there. But I think that was all. But I didn't realize that they were breathing methane. I just thought it was, not a nice place to be outside the domed cities. But the atmosphere has actually changed, and the humans outside slowly adapted to it. So now they can't even breathe the old O2. And the people outside of the cities, there's some worship of the Junk Rabbit, too. They think the Junk Rabbit is some sort of god of some kind, or at least worthy of worship. I guess you don't have to worship a god. You can worship all sorts of things. But it's been a good little series. Not the greatest series ever, but I've been enjoying it. And the art is nice. He does a good job with the art. It was one of those I would have put on my pull list faster if I knew it was a miniseries, but I was ordering it issue by issue because I didn't decide if I would like it forever or just for 5 issues. I'd like it for 5 issues for sure.
Right.
Chris.
Is it a world that could continue? Or do you think that's one of those the story's done and that's it?
It could continue, especially the Junk Rabbit hasn't met its final fate, so. Chris, have you seen the Savage Dragon hardcover that just came out?
Not yet.
Because what I find, J-Rock, who's a YouTuber, occasionally shows up here, makes his own videos. I think, and he has sometimes sent comics out to be bound, like make his own hardcover editions.
Uh-huh.
So he had his Savage Dragons bound, and then he just got, of course, the new version. He got that too, and then he was kind of going through them, and showing us that they actually added some pages to the new hardcover volume and recolored the whole thing. And I think they not the same as it was. And I think they maybe have even took away a page or two here or there. So
I think in the first 5 years, he reshuffled and added pages and recolored it.
Okay.
So there's been a few different versions already. So I think whatever's in that hardcover is probably whatever the most recent old revamp was.
So he already did that for like the trade paperbacks.
Yes, the first trade paperback, he changed the order of pages, and I don't know, and I think he recolored the whole thing. I don't know if he added any new pages. Then he did a mini series. Then he did like a, hey, get the original series again in this mini series, but he split it into 5 issues. So he added new pages to that.
Oh, okay.
And then recollected that. So there's 2 versions of the original miniseries put together because he kept changing. So there's like, I think there's there's 3 versions of the original miniseries.
There's as it was printed in the
already before the hardcover. So I think the hardcover probably has the 3rd version.
Third one version. Oh, okay, that's interesting. He tinkers with it.
Yeah. I suspect he didn't add anything new to it, but I can always ask him. But when he does that, he usually mentions it.
Right. He doesn't hide it.
Yeah.
He's not trying to pull a fast one at him. You thought you were getting the original Star Wars movie, but you're not.
Remastered editions.
Remastered. I wonder how many volumes of it he's going to do. Because he always said that the reason he didn't collect them all in hardcovers was because he knows what's going to happen. By the time volume 5 or 6 rolls around, no one's going to be buying them and it won't be profitable. So everybody jumps on volume 1 and 2, maybe 3. By the time you get to 5 or 6, nobody cares.
Yeah. Well, he's right.
Yeah, I know.
To think that. But
he's not wrong.
On the other hand, there isn't anything for new readers if they're trying to get into it. It's like, okay, you can collect like a big chunk of it fairly easily, and then all of a sudden you can't.
Right. New readers can at least try out volume 1 and 2 to lose interest by 5. If they don't have 1 and 2, they won't. They'll already have lost interest. I read all of Savage Dragon like all at once. Must be a decade ago now. Probably around issue 175. I sat down over a week or two and read from 1 to 175, and it's really good to read that way because it takes place in real time. So you get to see the characters age kind of and grow up and change and all the changes that happen. I got to say, it was really enjoyable to read that way. I'll have to do it again now that, there's another 120 issues or something since I last read it. Have you ever sat down and read it that way, Chris?
I've reread it a few times, but not all the way through. Like,
you reread bits and pieces, your favorite parts.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, if you ever decide to read it all the way through, it holds up well. And that's what also made me realize that Eric Larson is kind of like a lifetime achievement Oscar winner. In that I don't think, beside it being Chris's favorite book all these years, I don't think it'll be like at any points in his existence, it wasn't like a top 10 book or whatever number you want to pick it. But for its entire existence, it's been a really good book. Like nobody puts any particular run of Savage Dragon up there with the best with Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, or everything else that people say is up there. Besides Chris, of course. No one puts Savage Dragon up there with those books. But it has been closer to those books for a longer time than any other comic. Like no one has also done a very good comic for that long. So Stan Sakai is one you can, but I'd actually put Stan Sakai higher, but that's just me, my taste. But like a Lifetime, it's like the same reason people get Lifetime Oscars is they get old. They're not going to have another Oscar-worthy role, and people look back at their history and go, well, maybe he never won an Oscar, but he sure deserved to win an Oscar. We should give him one.
Yeah, well, there isn't anything like that in comics.
What was that?
There isn't anything like that in comics, and if there was, those people would never give him that.
But I would if I was in charge.
Yeah.
You can name him the Jareds.
He would get a Lifetime Comic Achievement Award for me. We're putting out so good a comic for so long.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't, the best comic ever, like pick whenever you think is your best comic. It's close to it.
The minute that we had the Eisners and the Harveys at the same time, any comic book awards, they lose their credibility.
Yeah, I've never given much credibility to comic book awards because my taste isn't. If my taste and comic book award tastes overlapped, it's coincidence.
Yeah, and besides, the awards that I would give when I was 20 are not the awards I would give now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did go through, but can you not say that X-Men is the best comic? That Cerebus sucks.
I've been reading Savage Dragon since 250. I love what Jared mentioned. It's always updated with reality, and the story is never dull. Yeah, it's always changed. Not just you. Stan Sakai deserves all the praise he gets. Yeah, we've got a Stan Sakai Appreciation Society on YouTube. A lot of us Stan Sakai fans.
That's right. So. And an anti-saga appreciation society.
There was some. Oh my goodness. I think it was a Comics Journal link I saw to some guy who wrote a critique of Saga that all it did was bash Saga. And I was just like, to me, there are so many bad critiques out there when you critique something for what it's not, or you critique something because it doesn't do it how you do it. I'm like, that's not a critique. That's telling me about you, not the book. And that's what it didn't like Saga because it didn't do this. It was really a mediocre comic, and it doesn't deserve to represent the comic industry, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, we get it. You don't like it. And you're right. It's not a comic that deals with sexual trauma the way you want sexual trauma to be dealt with. Maybe the rest of us don't care. But it was just so weird to read. Like critiques like that just make me go, oh, come on.
Wait, was the critique written by Tom King?
I don't think it was written by Tom. It was a Comics Journal critique that happened to be I found on Twitter, like when it came out or something. But I was just like, and I always tell them, like, telling me how you do it isn't a critique. That's telling me how you do it.
That's telling you, hey, look how smart I am.
Right. A critique is looking. That's why I can still remember that there was a famous critique that's made of Alex Toth critiquing, I forget who, David Mazzucchelli, Frank Miller, somebody like that.
Was it the dude? Stephen Rood?
May have been Steve Rood. And it was the worst critique ever. Because once again, when you're critiquing someone's work, the first thing you have to understand is what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And all Alex Toth did was tell Steve Rood how he'd do it. And that's not a critique. He completely missed the point of what Steve Rood was doing and just told you how he'd do it. And everyone's like, oh, that's such a harsh critique. Oh, but he's right. I don't know. I'm like, no, that's a terrible critique. That's not how you critique anything. Mm-hmm. But of course, people don't know that. That's how you tell me how you do it. And how you do it is the least important thing about that work. The least important thing about Steve Rood's work is how Alex Toth would do it. Big an Alex Toth fan as I am.
I don't think I heard that critique about it.
Oh, it's like 20 years old now, but it makes the internet rounds every now and then. Mm. But next time you read a critique, keep that in mind. Is this person talking about the work, or is he telling me how he'd do the work? Is he mad at the work for what it isn't?
I remember somebody telling me how Savage Dragon is everything wrong with comics.
That was me. 100%. And Chris changed my mind eventually. His perseverance of liking Savage Dragon made me say, what am I missing here? What am I not seeing?
My perseverance of liking it. Because, I never tried to convince you.
No, just you liking it. Just you were excited every month that Savage Dragon came out. And I was like, Chris isn't dumb. Chris doesn't have bad taste. I'm missing something. And that's when I put Savage Dragon on my pull list. I think with issue 70, just when he's perfect time to start it too, because he wiped the slate clean with it and got more Kirby-esque.
Well, ever since I figured out how much I enjoyed Danger Girl, I'm not going to actually judge taste, unless you're a fan of Tom King. In that case, yes, right. I will judge you.
Well, it's okay to judge things, but just keep in mind you can change your judgment.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I read Danger Girl, and if I could write a critique of it, yes, I know it's not the most intelligent comic on the planet, but it doesn't have to be. That's how I would start it. Right. This promises hot-looking chicks, high-octane action, explosions, and funny moments, and it's got all of them in the right in their well-proportioned. Not just the hot-looking chicks. The story.
Like I said, if you were to critique Danger Girl, you wouldn't say, well, there's not enough discussion of Shakespeare plays in it.
That's right. It would be completely. In fact, if there was a discussion of Shakespeare's plays in there in a way that it was not funny. It would be completely out of place in there.
Right.
As I was expecting an explosion, and then they started talking about Shakespeare out of the blue. Why?
and actually, in rereading those Savage, when Chris's quote of mine is everything that's wrong with comics, I can understand why I said that. Because I didn't I was never a fan of that sort of Image Comics, as it became known, storytelling style. But
Eric Larson never really did it that way.
He did, but I'll explain what I mean by the Image, because
I think people usually mean Rob Liefeld comics.
They do, but I'm not even talking that. I'll explain what I mean now. And he actually changed his whole style too with that issue I started when he switched to the Jack Kirby 6-panel grid. And he's but it was when I read all those early issues finally, 175 in a row. That was the first time I read the early ones since I think one issue of Savage Dragon that I read that Chris gave me, and I said, this is everything that's wrong with comics. And especially since there was such distance from it, because I probably read them in 2005, who knows. And reading those, I don't know, the first 25 especially or so, Savage Dragon ones, I could see the storytelling style that I never really saw before, where it was like in the early 90s, it was always just, oh my goodness, they just draw pinups. They just draw pinups. They don't even tell a story. It's just pinups. That was always the critique of that style, and my critique too. But in rereading them, 15 years later, when that style doesn't really exist anymore, I could see how they were actually building the story around the pinups. That there was actually a technique to it, like I said, with distance, and I could see it more. And who knows? And I'm sure not everyone was as good at it as Eric Larson. There's that too. But I got into reading them all in a row. I started to appreciate that style he had then, and I got into the rhythm of it a lot more than I did in the early 90s. But he hasn't even done that style in 25 years. So it's like that's especially, it's like a style that doesn't even. So when I go back and read that early Image stuff, I go with it with that sort of that mindset, and I actually appreciate it more.
Out of all the Image number ones, back then when they came out here, I thought that Wildcats number one was the best.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I would probably agree that Savage Dragon number one is the best written one.
Mm-hmm.
The most interesting art to me is still Wildcats number one, because it's Jim Lee had the height of his powers, so to say.
Stormwatch was the first Wildstorm book that I liked. And bought the first Image book, because what I did, I in those days is it's like I missed all of Valiant. I just didn't buy any Valiant, but I was just not into superhero stuff really. So I just like skipped over the whole Valiant era. And like the Image stuff, there was so much, hype and stuff around it that I just wasn't interested. It just turned me off. It's not like I was reading those guys to begin with.
A lot of the criticism of those guys when they formed Image was they had an opportunity to really do something new, and all they did was they just went ahead and they just did more superhero stuff, and they should have done this and they should have done this, and it, like just to circle back to your critique of people critiquing.
Yes,
it's like
that's who they are, the superheroes.
How dare you draw comics for exactly the audience you know that you have?
So I didn't.
No, you have to put it this way when you're critiquing the critique. Here's what I would have done if I was working for Marvel and I would quit. Yeah. That's the pinnacle of arrogance. You're not working for Marvel. You're working for the Comics Journal. But here's what you would do if you quit Marvel.
So I didn't try any of the Image books till around issue, I don't know, 5 or 6. And the ones I liked were Stormwatch. So I went back and got like the earlier issues because they're easy to come across. But especially in those days, there was like half a dozen comic shops in my county. So I could just make the rounds and find the stuff. So I liked Stormwatch because it was one of the first books that added like real world politics into a superhero story. I enjoyed that.
Was that Alan Moore or Grant Morrison?
No, that was like no, it wasn't. It may have even been like Brandon Choi and Jim Lee or one of those peripheral to them. I can't remember who wrote the original Stormwatch, but it wasn't any big name. I enjoyed Wildcats. I think I started buying that one with like issue 5. Savage Dragon I wasn't into. I even liked some of the Liefeld stuff, which was Bloodstrike or something. Only in that he created all these characters just to kill off, and I thought that was cool. But then he brought them all back, and I was like, whatever. I don't care now that he brought them all. I thought it was interesting having actual death in the story, but then it was.
No, I thought the whole concept of the book is we can do anything we want with these soldiers because they're dead.
I don't remember. All
I thought that was the whole book was built around like, yeah, we could just resurrect these. We have dead people.
Good for you. It may not have been Bloodstrike. There was one other book he did that was like a companion book to Bloodstrike. I can't even remember what Brigade. It may have been Brigade where they were killing people off, and that made me pick up Bloodstrike too. But either way, I liked it at the beginning, and then they started bringing back all the people they killed off, and death lost its sting. So I was like, I grew disinterested. But Stormwatch I kept buying until Ron Lim drew it. Then I was like, oh my goodness, why am I buying a Ron Lim book? Nothing against the man's talent, but sometime in the early to mid 90s, he became the guy who you called when you needed a book drawn in a week. And he was a good artist. But when he had just a week to draw a book, it wasn't A-level Ron Lim. And those Stormwatches weren't A-level Ron Lim. I have them all now, though, because my what was it? Stormwatch turned into when the Warren Ellis Stormwatch hit. That's when it got really good.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but that wasn't until like issue 47.
Right.
And that was good. That to me, that stuff changed comics. It changed the way comics were written. But anyway,
it wasn't just Ellis. People rave about Brian Hitch coming on, but I enjoyed Tom Rainey's art very much.
Yeah, me too.
Tom Rainey was like Brett Booth, a guy who took the best things that Jim Lee could do and improved on them, made them easier to follow.
Yeah, I agree. Tom Rainey was a big part of that too. Shouldn't shortchange him. But then there was like 3 or 4 volumes of Stormwatch, and I bought some of them. And I think I gave up at Stormwatch Team Achilles. But then there was Chris used to work used to be the guy who worked in the comic shop. So I'd always talk to Chris, and he was much more mainstream than I. So our tastes didn't always overlap. But he was also like ex-military, so he likes the military books. And we got to talking about Stormwatch. That was one place where our tastes overlapped. And I was like, I kind of gave up sort of around Team Achilles. Just like, no, you got to read Team Achilles. You got to read all of it. So then when he had downtime at the comic shop, he would find the Team Achilles books for me in the back. They were only like $1 or $2. He's like, no, you got to get these ones. So I'd buy the team. So I ended up getting all the Team Achilles books. But so I had all the Stormwatch books except for like issue, I don't know, 26 or 27, where I gave up on the Ron Lim stuff. Till I don't know, maybe it was issue like 39 where Warren Ellis took over. But anyway, I'm like, oh, you got those. So then he found all, and they were like $1 a piece. So it's like, I'm like, and they're pretty terrible. That is really like a bad period. But I'm like, I have them. I'm like, I may as well fill in that last hole I have, because it only cost me $11. So now I have like all the Stormwatch volumes complete until it gets to the DC stuff and doesn't really resemble Stormwatch.
I actually started buying regular with the Authority, and I was liking it so much I bought the Authority spin-offs. I don't mean the miniseries. I mean the Monarchy and the Establishment.
I tried reading an issue or two of those. They did not hold up.
Yeah, the monarchy
They were
reads
okay.
better if you read everything together. It's kind of weird, and sometimes it doesn't make much sense. I think they were trying to do a Grant Morrison Vertigo book without Grant Morrison, but the establishment is fun if you start picking up on the clues about British sci-fi shows, because there's a lot of it. There's references to Doctor Who, to Miracle Man, to the Village of the Damned. So when you start picking up all the pieces, that's fun, because it's a bit more fun. They made it to be British,
right?
And once again, when you start making all the connections, it becomes interesting.
Okay. Mine in the comments said Saga was great for 25 issues or so. I confess to be getting tired now. Little Saga would be great, but I'm buying it to the end. I actually steeled myself for people saying they're going to get tired of Saga when it first started. I said to myself, it's in the name. This is going to be a long, drawn-out saga. I have to be okay with that now and be in it for the long run. And I said, along the way, I'm going to hear endless people saying how they're tired of Saga and it isn't as great as it used to be. I just have to ignore all that and enjoy it for what it is. And that's what I've been able to do. And also, I enjoy it. Saga is one of those books, like I always say, to me, it's a B. It's not an A. I don't expect it to be an A. It's a B, and Saga kind of washes over me. I enjoy it as I read it, but it's not a book I think about afterwards. So it's like, but I enjoy it when I read it. I know it's going to be never ending. It's a saga. It's this story about this little girl growing up, and guess what? She's still a little girl. It's got a long way to go if it wants to. So I've said to myself, you know what? There's no reason. Saga is never going to disappoint me because I never put it on a pedestal. So I'm just going to enjoy it for as long as it goes. I read Spawn and I read Spawn and Cyberforce, but the Savage Dragon miniseries was mind-blowing for 14-year-old me, and still is. Yeah, it was. How old was I then? 30-year-old me. It wasn't mind-blowing. So it blew Chris's mind. How old were you when Spawn came out, Chris? I mean, not Spawn. Savage Dragon.
I was 17 when Image started, but Savage Dragon was the only one that had like a clear story that you could follow. Like everybody else fell into the trap of like, yeah, everything's you're coming in the middle of the movie.
Everything's
crazy stuff.
Things have been happening.
Yeah. And even though Savage Dragon's own past was shrouded in mystery and everything, it was like here's a story that's happening and you can follow it and you're watching it and.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I can understand.
What got me into the Wildcats was all the backstory they introduced in issue number 1, which eventually half of it was never picked up on again. But the main plot of the Carabins and the Daemonites, that was what interested me. But as soon as Jim Lee figured out that he didn't actually want to write. And the real writers came in. Some of his ideas never made it onto the final story.
Saga will finish at 105. Mine the comic says. I think there's an announced final issue. Oh yeah, I can believe that. But yeah, like I said, it could just ramble on. And also, I have never reread Saga. So I've never sat down and read a big chunk of it. It might be fine if I do, but like I said, to me, it's a month-to-month book, and I follow the saga and then put it down. I enjoy it, but it's a solid B. Other people like it a lot more than me, but I still like it. Anything else that I get this week before time's up? Let's see. Oh yeah, a few things. No One, issue number 4. This is mostly a police procedural. It takes place in the mass. They've now got a massive verse up here by the Image logo, so it's the Radiant Black universe. It's a police procedural with some superheroes on the periphery, and it's written pretty well. It's drawn pretty well. I enjoy it, but there aren't that many comics that are police procedural. There's a billion TV shows, so it's been interesting. I described the plot, but it's too complicated. There's no one, I think, has superpowers. I don't know, but there's also someone imitating No One. And No One is some sort of vigilante, but the person who's imitating is even more of a vigilante. But then a high police official, his son is already in jail for being No One and killing someone. And meanwhile, his father just quit the force. He retired from the force, and they're trying to do others. It's like it's a police procedural with a lot of stuff going on.
Wait, No One and Someone, is this an Abbott and Costello routine?
Could be. And
Who's on first?
This is the new Maxwell Prince series. Each issue will be. This is. There's the cover. This is the artist from Department of Truth.
Yeah.
What's his name? Martin Simmons. And I think each issue is going to have a different artist. I think it's a mini. A different artist and swan songs. I think each issue deals with death some way. Because this is a post, it's a done in one post-apocalyptic story about the world's falling apart, and the kid is taking care of his mother. I shouldn't say he's a kid. He must be in his 20s. Who knows? Is taking care of his mother who needs dialysis. So she's still in the hospital, despite the fact that no one else is in the hospital. Everybody's gone home. Half the world is dead. The other half is still out there being crazy. And this is sort of a little done-in-one story about death. I guess that's why it's called Swan Songs. I'm guessing they're all going to be about death because it says next issue, The End of a Marriage, without art by Casper Windgard, who's an artist. I've been buying his stuff. So I guess this is not about death, but about death of a marriage. Next issue. But I enjoyed this first issue. I don't know if I put it on my pull list or just ordered the first issue, but I'll put it on my pull list now. And another terrific issue of Love Everlasting. This, like I said, in the first 4 or 5 issues, she was trapped going from romance story to romance story. And for the last, I don't know, this is issue 9, last 3 or 4 issues, she's been in this one romance story, living her whole life, even though it keeps being 1963. She's the only one aware of it. Her husband and kids, they've all grown up and grown old, and it's still 1963, and she's the only one who knows she's in a story. So this issue, one thing, was all about the death. It was all about her husband dying, and her having to. And really good issue. Like the art in it is just terrific. Tom King's doing a good job writing this one, but it's the art that really sells it for me too. But so I don't know how or if she's getting out of this story now. So, but really sort of poignant ending, and we'll end on the latest issue of Spawn. Big, huge Spawn war going on, still going on. Hell is invading heaven, and Spawn can't stop it. Matter of fact, it's all his fault. The melodrama of Spawn.
As devised by Todd McFarlane.
Well, I guess it's 8:45, so we should wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
Let Paolo get to sleep, take off his sunglasses, and close his eyes.
Yeah. But next week I will bring my normal glasses because they will have been fixed. In fact, I have to fix them tomorrow.
I read that romance book at the shop and very much enjoyed the ending. Yeah, King writes very good love story. Hey, that's not a library, mister. I've never heard anyone actually say that and mean it, but I've heard it said so many times. All right, so everybody have a good night out there.
See ya.
We will
Take
catch you
care,
next
everybody.
time.